Hey friends, Christy here with Little Roots Ranch, and today we're going to talk about seeds to sow in February, and which is really exciting because starting our gardens is the funnest thing ever, at least to me. And I know this year, over the winter, my garden bug seemed more severe, and I'm so excited about this coming season. So I'm out here in the greenhouse that I've been kind of working on. I need to soft rake out the wood chips out of the beds, but I've been slowly getting them ready. But anyways, so I'm going to talk first about seeds that you can sow indoors, then seeds that you can sow undercover, and then lastly seeds that you can sow outdoors. So it's February now, and I'm sure you've heard the old adage, sow peas by President's Day, and I've also heard potatoes lumped in with that, and all kinds of different sayings. And some folks like to push the envelope a little bit more and seed earlier. I did do that with potatoes this year. It's been, in my opinion, a relatively warm winter, or 2023, whatever, January, February. And some folks like to play it a little more conservative and plant later, and there's nothing wrong with either approach. It's whatever suits you as a gardener. But I wanted to talk about, hi boys, my turkeys. Anyway, so I made a list so I don't forget, because when it's filming and then I'll easily forget like half of the things. So first I want to talk about sowing indoors. And so what does that look like? For some folks, that's right next to a window with just a couple seeds, or something really small scale. Be careful if you have those energy efficient windows, because they're going to block, they're by design, they block out like the sun's rays, or the red lights, or the red waves, or something like that. You can also have an indoor seed setup. I've got a video I think I made last year on mine, which you could have a metal rack with the lights on it, like they're like 4 feet long, and you can have multiples of those. Or you might have like the LED lights, or the purplish lights, or whatever setup you have. These are the seeds that you can start indoors in February. Now, one caveat I want to give to all of these lists is that later in the month is generally better. In my opinion, I think we are going to have, my prediction for this year is that we're going to have a traditional Pacific Northwest year. And so I could be wrong, and I might eat my words, but I just have a feeling that we're not going to get that really bad heat wave. It's going to be a warmer spring. Spring isn't going to drag into summer. I think it's going to go back. I'm not sure though. Maybe I'm just wanting to will it. But it's always what you're comfortable with. But if you're unsure, or you're really busy, or you haven't gardened before, sometimes it's a little easier on the heart if you just wait a little bit, or like wait till the end of the month, or at least mid-month, or something like that. So that way, if you're not, because you can start plants, hi boys, you can start plants right away, like even in January, or sowing things outdoors, or like I did potatoes in January. And though I feel like they're going to be fine, if something did happen and I lost those potatoes, I'm okay. I've got multiple successions of potatoes that I'm going to get in. I dedicate my time to my garden and stuff like that. And so that I feel comfortable with being a little more risky, I guess, if you will. But if that's not you, it's totally okay to play it safe. Anyways, getting to the list of things that you can sow indoors. So we've got asparagus. If you're doing that, you can buy the seeds or the crowns. Seeds take a little longer, and you get, of course, the male and female plants and stuff like that. But you can start those, and it's a cost-efficient way to start asparagus. There's also what's known as the brassicas, or the cole crops, or whatever, and that's broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower. Those are all amazing. You can start those indoors. There's also celery. One thing to note about celery, it is very, 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 very slow growing. I will be starting celery, but just as a heads up, it takes a while to germinate, takes a while to grow. Then there's also chives and collard greens, endive, fennel, kale, leeks, onions, lettuce, parsley, and rhubarb. And rhubarb's another one you can grow from dividing roots, which is, in my opinion, I think the best way to go, especially you already know what the parent plant looks like and stuff like that. But if you don't know anybody with a rhubarb plant that wants to share, or you're trying to be cost efficient, rhubarb seeds are relatively cheap and you can get those started, and they're cool to watch grow. I've started rhubarb from seed, and I've also divided rhubarb from friends and family. So both options work. As you'll notice in this list, it's mostly the onion family, the Brassicaceae family, and some of the cool weather herbs, and greens, of course. Greens are always the first. They're the easiest to grow in the spring, a little more difficult in the summer. Now, the next thing I'm going to get to as far as indoor planting, and I want to say this with use at your own whim or whatever. So at the very end of February, it is customary in our zone, 8B, Pacific Northwest, whatever, to plant, or to start, seed inside your hot weather crops. That's your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants. Now, I know people who have started those in January, and I know people, me, who's gonna wait at least a month, potentially a month more. I'm not sure. I think between maybe March, I might start some, but I might also do April. And I'm not exactly sure, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're wanting to start seeds, what you don't want to do is set yourself up for failure by planting a whole bunch of seeds. Because when you, like if you, I have this convenient, hold on. Ugh. Don't mind this old seed tray that's got dead rotten tomatoes on it. So this is a 72 flat. And so I can fit 72 plants in here. And it's nice and tiny. You can see the little like things or whatever. And so I can put 72 plants in there. But the problem that I think a lot of people overlook is for how long? Can I keep tomatoes in here for all of life? No, not if I want healthy tomatoes. I'm gonna get some super leggy tomatoes that aren't strong. And so I'm gonna need to pot those up. And so while I might fit 72 in like a 1x2 foot area, when I pot those up, I'm gonna need like triple, quadruple, whatever the amount of space. So that's something to think about too. Also, plants don't just grow in width, they also grow in height. And this is where I always have the problem. My tomatoes will grow strong and beautiful, but they always reach the cap of what I can fit under my grow lights. And again, I start more tomatoes than probably the average gardener or maybe entry-level gardener, because the farm, you know, I start a lot of tomatoes admittedly, so it might be different. But they start growing so fast. And if I'm looking at like March, April, whatever, it's not warm enough for them to go outside. Hi, boys. Even in the greenhouse. And so that creates a real problem. So for me, I prefer to just wait. I find that I'm not behind on production. I find that I get healthier plants and stuff like that. But I also know that there's a lot of people who are like, I'm starting tomatoes and I don't even care. And that's totally fine too. Just be prepared. If you're a very busy person with zero time to dedicate to your garden, then starting things early and needing to maintain them for longer may not be your best option. If you have a little bit more time or you're more seasoned or whatever, absolutely go for it. Try experiments, you know, do crazy stuff, whatever. That's just my 2 cents. So now I'm going to talk about seeds to sow undercover. Now, what does undercover mean? Well, one, it could be this greenhouse, which I do have the sides rolled up, but under the greenhouse, because I'm undercover. If it was pouring rain right now, I would still be dry and able to sit on the ground. That could also be like a small row cover. Like there's caterpillar tunnels, which are smaller than this, like maybe cover like a couple rows and maybe go up to like 6 feet. There's the small rows that go up to like 14-ish feet. There's all kinds of contraptions that folks build. Those little cloches, I don't have any of them around, but the little plastic like things, some people back in the day they used glass, you know, there's those like boxes that you can build. Just undercover means undercover, and so it's less protected than the house but more protected than the outside is kind of the gist of it. So what you can plant in there is going to be a whole lot of greens greens, peas, and roots basically, but that includes arugula, Asian greens, beets, broccoli rabe, Chinese cabbage, cilantro. Cilantro likes cool weather. I know a lot of people associate that with hot weather, but it actually doesn't like to grow in the heat. Collard greens, hi boys, endive, kale, lettuce, mustard, like mustard greens, peas, radish, spinach, of course, and turnips. And so those can be sown undercover. If you're feeling adventurous, you can sow those outside as well. Which I plan to, because I feel like this year has been really warm for this time of year. Historically, we've always had a snow, well, not always. The last couple years we've had a snow, 1 or 2 snowstorms, or even a small one in February. And I looked around Valentine's Day just before, and I looked at the 10-day forecast, and at least for my area, the overnight lows are low 40s, high 30s, but mostly low 40s. And so I think I'm gonna go for it. But again, I also have the stomach for it. So now I'm gonna move to seeds that you can sow outdoors. And the the official list, so first I'm gonna give you the official list of seeds that are absolutely safe to sow outdoors. And then I'll go into seeds that, hey, if you got a couple extra, or you're feeling it's a warmer year, or you want to experiment a little bit, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. But this, I'll give the safe list first. If you're a brand new gardener, you don't want to have a lot of failures, these are what you can sow outdoors for sure. And it's gonna be fava beans, fennel, garlic, and onion sets. Again, onion sets are the ones you buy from the store, and they look like little baby started ones. They may not have the green appearing just yet, and then also peas and shallots. And so that's a little bit of a smaller list, because obviously it's the warmest inside, a little warmer undercover, and then, you know, natural elements outside. But to add on that list is, honestly, you could sow anything you want outside. It just depends if it works or not. And that's going to vary every single year. If you planted, last year was really cold. The spring was, especially the early spring, was one of the coldest ones I've ever, I mean, we had only in May a couple days where it reached above like 70 degrees or something like that, which is unheard of for our area. But if you planted like broccoli, for instance, or sowed broccoli outside last year, it likely was not successful, but then this year it may be perfect. And that's just one of the things with gardening. You really need to like go with the flow and be open to the fact that even if you do the right things, like the weather and Mother Nature, all that stuff, what are you gonna do? You know, and so you just try and ride through it. So for me personally, along with the list, I actually need to secure fava beans, because there seems to be a shortage. I think for small like packets at like garden stores and stuff like that, like those are abundant, but for like the large seed houses, getting a big quantity of fava beans has been tight. I know at least it was in December. I need to see if anybody's gotten any stock in or whatever. But I don't think I'm growing fennel. I did plant spring garlic last week of January. I also did that with shallots. I'm not doing onion sets, and I do need to get my peas into the ground. So I will be following that. In addition to that, what I plan to do in the next 1 to 2 weeks, so the first part of February, I want to get out and I'm going to do carrots, I'm going to do beets, and these are outside grown. I'm going to do some greens and lettuces and stuff like that. And I'm going to plant, actually that's something I'm working on as a farm, like one of my farm goals is to try starting more things outdoors. Now there's, like anything in life, and of course gardening, there's pros and cons to everything. If you start a plant indoors, it's going to, you have a better chance of it like becoming a success. Like if I throw a tomato seed in the ground, it's not coming up anytime soon. If I throw a tomato seed in some soil or whatever, growing medium inside under a grow light, it's, you know, I've got like a 95% chance it's coming up. But the plant started outside has a healthier root system than the plant started inside, especially if the plant started inside lives a long time inside. The plant outside is also healthier because it has to deal with, like right today it's windy, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's windy, or the rain, the changes in temperature, whereas the house is pretty consistent. And so there's convenience, and then there's also like greater chance of loss. So it's like a tug of war. But this year I really want to especially because I think it's going to be such a great weather year, is I really want to focus on germinating things outside and seeing the difference in like resilience and like health and stuff like that. So that's something that, just heads up, that I'm focusing on. So I have one of those little cedars. I think it was $150. I think I got it at Johnny's. It's the Earthway cedar. A lot of people hate them. A lot of people love them. But it's a push seeder, and so I can pour my seeds in and kind of plant seeds about as fast as I could walk. It's not as accurate as hand seeding, but it's effective for this size garden that I have. You know, if you've got a couple raised beds or a smaller plot. Sorry, I thought I heard an eagle. If you've got got my birds, so I always watch out for aerial predators. But if you've got a smaller area, it's just better to hand seed. But if you're growing on a larger area, you know, you might want to consider getting a seeder. I plan to start a lot of things, to put a lot of seeds in the ground early on, and kind of rely on, I guess it's kind of a little bit the concept of winter sowing. And I don't know if you've heard of that. And I'll be honest, I don't know too much about that. I can do a video if there's interest and do some research. But I think I have the concept just based on the volunteer plants I have every single year. And what that means is, like, I do have tomatoes pop up every year where I had tomatoes previously. And that's because they just overwinter in the soil, and then when the conditions are right, they pop up. And I harvest those tomatoes too, and they're delicious. They're always later than like my planted tomatoes, of course. And usually it's the cherry tomatoes or whatever, but that works fabulously. And I think that winter sowing is the same concept. Whereas if I put, like, let's say today it's too cold for broccoli, but I sow broccoli seeds. I'm doing sprouting broccoli this year, and I sow 50 feet of sprouting broccoli seeds. If the temperatures aren't right, like, the seed's made to do what it's going to do, right? And so it's just going to wait. And maybe next week might be better, or maybe it's 3 weeks from now. But let's say it's 3 weeks from now is when the seed is like, you know what, these are favorable conditions. I think this is the best chance of growing and being a productive plant. I'm going to go ahead and emerge. And if the one seed's got the idea, usually all the seeds kind of do. And so even though I sow the seeds now, I'm not going to be coming every single day and being like, oh, are they emerging yet? Hi, boys. Sorry, whenever I raise my voice, they want to talk too. But, you know, but just being comfortable with, oh, okay, it might take a little bit longer, you know. And so that's kind of something that I'm going to do. And I'll do a follow-up video and kind of explain a little more. But I just wanted to cover kind of the seeds that are great. You know, basically early February, you're looking at your greens, any residual allium family like the onions or whatever, garlic, even the onion sets, but definitely the seeds. If you haven't started those yet, get those done. We're running short on time for that. And then of course all the greens and your peas and fava beans. As a reminder, fava beans and regular beans are not the same. Fava beans are in with the peas that are cold hardy. Regular beans, they're hot weather crops. So it's not all beans, it's only fava beans. And yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to say. Happy gardening. You know, feel free to experiment or pick up an extra packet of seeds, or an extra turkey. No kidding. Pick up an extra packet of seeds and, you know, throw them in the garden and see what comes up. Of course, that works best for cold-hardy crops. But anyways, thank you for watching. If you've watched this far, I really appreciate it. Go ahead and put a like because that helps me. And yeah, thank you for watching. Happy February and happy gardening. Bye.